Why is broadcasting your passion?
I'm standing there, I'm 20 years old, and the guy that's running the switcher says, "Hey kid, you want to cue Tom Brokaw?" I'm like, "Yeah."
I don't really know what journalism is, but to me, it's asking questions and trying to dig out the truth. And in my opinion, a lot of the news is biased.
We serve 4 million people. I get paid to go understand Detroit and to amplify important voices in Detroit. So to me, it's a gift.
I mean, as I elevate and I help you to elevate and you help me to elevate and we help the city, we all win.
People will help you, and they'll help you for free, but you must be worth their time.
Hi, I'm Coach Bob, host of Viva La Visionary. Very excited to have an icon in the broadcasting industry, a local business leader here in Detroit. And I've been fortunate enough to work with Rich for many years. And Rich, you've inspired me and helped so many people. So I'm excited to have you on Viva La Visionary today.
I'm honored to be here and honored by your words.
Oh, well, thank you. So tell me a little bit about how you got into broadcasting. Why is that your passion? How does that help serve the world?
Well, it's ironic because I just turned 70.
Congratulations.
Yes, hard number to digest.
I can appreciate that.
But I thought, growing up in the 60s, I thought I wanted to make movies. And I eventually went to Temple University and found out that movie making is kludgy and, I'm real kinetic. I'm moving. And I found broadcasting would be my track. And at Temple, Temple had Annenberg funded Temple for the practical side and Penn for the communications theory. Temple had a great communication school, and part of their deal was, "Hey kid, you want in? Go find it. Get involved. Don't be sitting on your butt. There are resumes every CEO's desk gonna go get going." And so I found myself on July 4th, 1976, at the Bicentennial as a gopher for NBC. And I started this side hustle where I would call the networks that were coming to town and say, "I have a car. I know the city like the back of my hand. Do you need a gopher?" Yeah.
That's awesome.
They paid you in cash. It was pretty good.
Right.
I had a lot of fun. So I worked the presidential debate, sold some pictures to the New York Times. I worked the Final Four that year, worked July 4th. I'm standing there, I'm 20 years old, and the guy that's running the switcher, controlling the cameras for NBC in the truck, says, "Hey kid, you want to cue Tom Brokaw?" I'm like, "Yeah." He says, when I point, you say, "Go Tom." So I started there, and I just got very invested in the broadcasting business. Thought I really wanted to work in TV. Then they gave me an internship in radio. That was the nerdy radio guys, and I fell in love with all news radio.
Right.
And so I was in the all news radio business for about 30 years in New York, Pittsburgh, back to New York, and then eventually came to Detroit to run WWJ, helped start the sports radio station. And I've had fun.
Right.
It's an industry, it's a business that matches my skills and matches my interest. And then after doing that for 12 years here, one day I found out that the opening occurred at Detroit PBS, and I turned to my wife and I said, "I think I want to go do this." And she said, "You save 15% of everything you ever made. You really want to do it, go do it." And so I've been doing this for 18 years now, and I love doing what I'm doing. But what I didn't realize, you and I talk a lot about sort of understanding yourself.
Right.
And I hired a coach when I turned 50, and I've taken all the tests. And so I went to a conference recently, and they did what's called a Berkman analysis.
Don't know it.
Never heard of it.
Right.
And it talks about the career. So I know that my Enneagram, I know my strength finders, but this talks about the career paths that would make most sense for you. And what's ironic about it, and I never thought of it this way, it makes perfect sense now, is that the number two was like influencing people and salesy.
Right.
About number 5, I grew up in a family full of attorneys. About number 5 was being an attorney. The number 1 thing was public service. That was my number 1 career path. And I never thought about it this way, but what I realized when I got, and the consultant said to me, I said, I never thought of myself this way. She goes, "Rich, everybody who knows you knows that your purpose at Detroit PBS is really important to you." But what I realized was I love the idea. I love what I do every day.
Right.
That the idea of understanding a community and how do you serve a community as the nonprofit public television station, that's a very unique business. There's only one in town. And so I love what I do every day. I have great fun. My wife literally says to me, "So you have to work Saturday and Sunday this week again?" But she's very understanding, and but the best part is I get paid to go understand Detroit,
Right.
and to amplify important voices in Detroit. So to me, it's a gift. And so,
And you're doing that without a bias, correct? I mean, isn't that
try to be very careful about that.
Right,
Yeah, try
which
to balance.
I don't really know what journalism is, but to me, it's asking questions and trying to dig out the truth. And in my opinion, a lot of the news is biased. And so PBS isn't, correct?
I mean, we're very, very intentional about
Right.
understanding the entire story.
Right.
And that's, that can feel clumsy at times. That can feel, there's always somebody that's going to say you're in the wrong direction about this or that. But we try to be very balanced. And in the end, if you believe that if we all understood each other better, we're doing work right now on the issue of caregiving. I guarantee you that half the people that are hearing my voice right now have someone in their family they're having to take care of in a significant way. Maybe it's mom, dad, right? Kids, a brother on the spectrum, a sister who was injured, parents, but what you realize is it's different in every family and it's the same in every family. And you start to understand. So your mom, you're taking, and talk like more. The person sitting next to you who looks nothing like you, who doesn't have the same profile financially, educationally, is dealing with the very same thing.
Right.
So there's ways we all differ, but there's ways we're all very, very similar when it comes to love of family and kids and worries about this and that. So, how do we simultaneously serve? Think about the math. We serve 4 million people in what is simultaneously one of the most diverse cities in the country, while simultaneously being one of the most segregated cities in the country.
Right.
That makes no sense, but that's Detroit. And
that's
so if you're, I had a board member recently give me some trouble. You don't have enough people from Macomb County. Okay, you're right. Okay, so we need to go to something about that.
Right.
So it's fun to understand the issues in our community and then to try and knit together better understandings.
Right. No, I love that.
Yep.
And I had the good fortune of being introduced to you, probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Yep.
And I was
I bet it's 10.
I think so. Oh my gosh! Yes, time flies.
Yeah.
And I was at the time being a implementer, a coach for EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System. And I was just getting started because EOS helped me to put the value of putting structure around things, especially what matters most, who matters most, and it made a difference in my life. So when I was introduced to PBS, I'm like, our target market is entrepreneurs who own their own business and are looking to go to the next level. And I'm like, okay, fine. And so when we talked, it was like, okay, well, maybe it's not just for entrepreneurs, it's entrepreneurial. And so it was fascinating that, that you wanted to do it and you were entrepreneurial and you were committed to helping your team to become entrepreneurial, to own who they are, where they're going. So tell me, how have you succeeded in being an entrepreneur in a nonprofit? I mean,
first of all, I think you're being very unfair. Entrepreneurs, I'm very entrepreneurial, but maybe that's entrepreneurs around ideas or entrepreneurs around community or entrepreneurs around running a nonprofit. When you say entrepreneurs, there's almost an expectation. You're talking about cash, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe
and
it's
you run your own business.
Right.
Right.
And so I run a standalone nonprofit that is technically owned by the people of Detroit, that are represented by a board of directors, or what's called a community license station. And so I think the best nonprofit leaders are very entrepreneurial, but they don't measure themselves simply in dollars and cents, but by impact and sustainability. And so I'm an entrepreneur, but with a different set of goals. How do we sustainably serve these issues? So you have to understand them. You have to build a plan. You have to, stay up late at night making sure that you stay with that you sustain it, and that you scale it. And so entrepreneurship can mean cash, and it'd be fun to do business startups and venture capital. I think we do venture ideas or venture issues or venture service. And so I think you're being a little unfair to the word entrepreneur, not to the bad dudes, but no.
But I appreciate that. And then as we got involved in EOS and we talked about the different seats on the accountability chart, and you obviously are a visionary. So did you know you were a visionary before, or what did you learn about yourself and the role of the visionary as you were rolling EOS out?
It's a gradual process. So, it's interesting, the evolution of understanding yourself. So I got fired once in my life. I was running sales for the all-news radio station in New York. I was 33 years old. I'm running sales for the number 3 billing radio station in the country.
Right.
And I decided to quit to run small market radio stations. I wanted to own radio stations. I thought I wanted to own radio stations. I got killed. And eventually, 2 years in, I got fired. And so a friend of mine says, you need to take the Ginter test. This guy, Jack Ginter. It was an adjective checkoff test. And I did the profile thing, and he looks at my profile, he comes back, and he says, Rich, he says, you're a sales guy. You're an entrepreneur. When you try to act like an accountant, you do 2 hours worth of work and you want to take a nap. When you are at your best, when you're an entrepreneur or a sales guy or whatever, you're in that rare group of people. If you talk for 8 hours, you gain energy. Right. Yep. Very few people. And so, and you know, when I turned 50, I hired a life coach. It's understanding yourself, and there's all these wonderful tools. Of course, we don't pay enough attention to them, right? But when I turned 50, I turned to Tracy. She said, "Do you want to go to Pebble Beach? We play golf together." I said, "No, I'm hiring a life coach." I hired a woman named Barb Grigsby. She did the Enneagram test, right? Yep. And she comes back to me and she says, 2 thoughts. She says, first of all, do you realize how lucky you are? You get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You go to work, you get coffee, you work for 2 or 3 hours before you get to the office. You go to the office, you work at 11:30 or 11:45. You then call Tracy to check in with your wife, who is the great mother to Nick. Nick was 10 years old at that point. She says, do you understand the people you work with would love to move as fast as you do. They're taking care of someone, or they're a single mom, or they've got other challenges. Right. And do you understand how lucky you are as a person? But the other thing she says is, she says, do you know that there are meetings that you need to schedule that you need to not attend?
Right.
Right?
Appreciate
You were
that.
right there.
Yeah.
You recognize that instantly. She says, understand, there are times when you need to walk into a room, arrange for a meeting. You need to walk in and say, you know what, I'm not staying. I have an assignment for you, and I'll be back in an hour. She says, when you come in, she says, this isn't to diminish you. You're a good enough person. She says, but when you come in, the quiet people in the room go, oh, he's here. This is great because now I can hide, right? She says, yeah, understand how imposing that your persona can be. And so sometimes when I walk into meetings now, I write at the top of my page, BTLS, be the last to speak.
Nice.
And it's killing me.
Yes. I can appreciate that.
How can you stop, right? But the whole idea, I think that idea of self-awareness, so along comes, Pat Ferring was on our board. He was a level 1 bank leader. He's a great guy. Yep. And he says, can I come and see you? So he comes in and he says, he has EOS materials, and he says, I think this is a system you need to think about. He says, I'm not telling everybody this, but I think you would particularly benefit from this. And so the idea of, are there meetings you need to not be in? I run very few meetings. Yep. Right? Yep. Laura Brandt runs a ton of our meetings,
awesome.
right?
She's amazing.
And I do kid people. What does every meeting need? 2 things: an agenda and a rehearsal, right? And so, but that idea of once you get past, I need to be in charge of everything, and I need to put my mitts on everything, and I spend very little time. We're in budget season,
right?
I know budget's on track. I have a great CFO, and they'll pull me in, and I'll ask a bunch of questions, but I'm not in budget meetings.
Right.
You wouldn't want me in budget meetings if you have the right CFO, right? And so you have to have the right staff. But the point is to understand how you run an organization, maximize your capabilities, and give room for others to maximize theirs. And that's a little, when people first say you don't need to be in that meeting, or no, he doesn't run that. Laura runs the meeting, but that buying into that. Well, and I'm sure you've had the experience, right? It's a little hard when somebody first says, no,
right.
You're not
we
really
don't need
in charge.
you, and we would actually be better off without you.
Right.
Oh, great.
Right. And I do think it's hard to create the culture in any organization. In many ways, I think it's even harder. I've said to you and to others about EOS, The entrepreneur operating system, it tends, there's this sense of this is about fueling entrepreneurs and small, medium-sized companies and startups. And all. What would be more entrepreneurial? Think about the math. We're assigned by the federal government through an FCC license to meet the unmet needs of 4 million people.
Right.
There's only one of us. We're the only public television station. You're supposed to take on this very unique effort. What's more entrepreneurial than go figure that out, right? And so I think actually nonprofits in many ways need EOS more than for-profits because, triple bottom line and all that, right? You have to serve the mission, you have to serve the employees, and you have to find the money to run it all. And so I actually think at our best, we're as entrepreneurial as any organization out there.
Right.
But now we have to take the negative side of it because you did this sort of these thieving entrepreneurs. So,
that wasn't my intent.
No,
right.
I'm kidding.
So what advice, experience share would you have for other visionaries? And I think you've already shared some of them, but what's something that you've learned as a visionary? Because it's kind of a new role in the last couple decades, at least defined that way. And a lot of people don't understand our role as a visionary for others to understand it, let alone ourselves. So anything around either what you've
learned. How much
learned
time do you have?
Right.
Well, there are a million things, but I think buying into the whole EOS mindset of how that system works, but also showing gratitude. Imagine if I bought into the EOS system and I diminished the integrator.
It wouldn't work. Okay.
Or I diminished the CFO to really to buy into the system, but also celebrate it. And great systems, I think. And I kid our staff, you've got to install it and then you've got to repeat and repeat and repeat. And that's a little frustrating for the logical ones in the room. You have to keep installing and reinstalling, but also you have to show a lot of respect. No, you're much better at that. Can you handle that? I know that you could handle that. I had a meeting with 2 people yesterday on our team, and we're trying to work out a couple of things as we head into the new year. And I say to people all the time, our CFO, we were at this meeting yesterday, and I said very pointedly, in a positive way, but if you say it, the whole building knows that you and I are aligned because you wouldn't say it unless we were aligned.
Right.
But to say to yourself, no, it's more powerful if someone who works for you says it, right?
You're on the same page, right?
And it's if I say it, it's like, oh. Did Bill agree with him? Did Tracy agree with him? No. I said they said it. It's like people know. So it's installing, but it's also supporting and reinstalling and sort of driving that culture, but also showing gratitude for. I say thank you to people all day long. Awesome. I've got a building full of people. We lost federal funding last year. We went from 100. When I got there, we had 80 employees. At one point, we made a big cut. We went to 65. We grew back to 100 employees.
Wow.
Today we have 80 employees. And so how many media outlets in this town have the same number of people they had in 2008? That's a good number.
Right.
And at the same time, we're going to grow from here, right? And so but you have 80 people working in a business that has changed to its very core. Right. Just start out with thanks.
Yep.
Just so showing respect for that and buying into the system and realizing where you're not needed and where you are needed. So,
and that's the humbleness too, that I don't have to always be the hero. Right. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. For you to navigate an industry has changed so much, and not only survive but thrive is amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's fun. But to find the right job. Like I'm watching you as you move from EOS into iMatter, and what's better in life than saying, I'm still growing,
right?
And I see, and I'm in my sweet spot, and I'm doing what I always wanted to do. That's isn't that the best?
Thank you. Yeah. And literally last week I had 3 people say, "So are you retired?" And I'm like, "No," and I don't know if I ever will. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to be working 70 hours a week. And to me, what I'm doing is not even work, like you said. I'm going to do it whether I get paid or not, and I'm actually providing more impact, probably making less money. But
you can't stop yourself.
Right? No, exactly. Very cool. So PBS, I mean, I remember it as a kid watching the, kids programs, and I know that's a big part of it. So you do kids programs, documentaries, the arts. What else does PBS do? Because you do so many things. As I got to know it, I was like, wow, I never knew that.
Well, we think about 5 pillars: kids, culture, leadership, energy, environment, and health. People who are listening to this know that I am a man of formulas.
Right.
If you can't say, right, and so I can show you our model: 5 pillars: kids, culture, children and education, arts and culture, leadership and public affairs. When I joined the organization, those were known as the 3 PBS pillars.
Right.
I added energy environment because of the city we live in, and knowing that was a huge issue. If you think about across the planet, think about water, think about transportation, right?
Yeah.
How many cities are more important than Detroit around the issue of energy and environment?
Right.
And then the last is health. And we're doing a lot of work on caregiving on that issue. But so we have 5 pillars, and how do we serve them? So how do you understand the need of each of them? So, to a certain extent, what's the geography of that?
Right.
We have a weekly show and daily content called Great Lakes Now that serves the entire basin. There's a real concern that people who live in the Great Lakes, there's a little bit of like, we'll be okay around global warming because we're in the Great Lakes. Do you know the peril that fresh water is under? Do you understand that
they're coming after us?
And now with the need to produce more energy around, what's going on with AI and all the rest of it. And so how do you take on those 5 issues and be able to represent yourself really well in those? So how to put a frame around that. So, and we've also understand today you have lots of options in your home. How do you find out what to watch on TV?
Right.
You call your friends. My wife is forever saying to friends, so what do you watch?
Right.
Are you watching Shrinking? Well, if you like Shrinking, you'll love Rooster.
Right.
Okay. And so understand that, and there's Marcus Collins, professor at University of Michigan, great, and he talks about how people today know what they're going to consume or buy based on their tribe.
Right.
Maybe it's your church. Maybe it's your next door neighbor. Maybe it's your Rotary. Maybe it's your buddies for
something you have in common.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And so if you think about, I joke with people, answer 5 questions and I'll make you cry. Where do you live? What do you do for a living? Is your family history significant to you? Did your father grow up in the Ukraine?
Right.
What's your biggest passion? What's your biggest challenge? We're in the business of serving those kinds of issues. So let's say you're caretaking for your mom, and let's say you love sailboats, and let's say your family's from the Ukraine, and let's say you live in Detroit, and you're a consultant, high level, a consultant to leadership. I got a show for you next week. But the idea is today we've gone from we put a show on the air, you watch in the dark, and that's it, to interactive. And so this idea of turning to communities and saying, help us to understand the issue, but then help us to share the content that we create. And so we've gone from shows, we talk about how to own the conversation. Do you know enough about the environment? Do you know enough about education to every day be talking to parents and to be talking to your partners? They're known as teachers, and in order to continue to refine, and expand your relationship with folks. So a very different business, and it's not, that all sounds highfalutin and great, but trying to drive that throughout the culture. So for a long time we talked about audiences and we talked about members. So you're one of 2 things: either you watch or you don't watch. And if you watch, we want you to become a member.
Right.
And so what's our next task? Become a member, become a member, become a member, right? What if we looked at folks and think of them as what we call subscribers? So you watched, and then tell me more about you. Can I get your email address?
Right.
Can I give you a newsletter that's customized to you, right? And so the idea inside we slightly different language, and not to diminish other stations or my predecessors, but the idea is we've moved from shows to owning issues and conversations. Partners are very important. We have a very active Black church group that has helped us understand Detroit like never before, but also advocates for us.
Right.
And then how to look at people and say, tell me again about, so I didn't know that your religion was X or Y or Z. Oh my God, right? And so how do you create that culture inside of a building? This is broadcasting. And we all grew up going, At one point, legendary show on PBS, the producer of that show, rather large ego. I'm at a conference and he's speaking. And I go to the front of the room and I had an idea for him. And he says, I said, I have an idea for you there, sir. And he says, so who are you? I said, I run Detroit. He goes, how long you been here? A couple of months. And he says, you're in the system. I said, here's the deal. I make the show. You air the show. People sit in the dark and watch the show. And I thought, oh my God.
Right.
He's so far. Today, that sounds silly.
Right.
And so if there's not a sense of we're making the show with you for you.
Two-way, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so you either quit because you're going to get crushed or embrace it because that's the future. So,
right.
Yeah.
So what can we do to support PBS? Obviously, watch it. To tell me, but I'm sure a percentage of your funding is by donations and whatnot.
About half of our revenue comes from membership.
Okay.
81,000 Detroiters write us a check every year.
Wow.
That's going up from 67,000 over the last year. Now we have to, how do we renew all of that?
Right.
But about half of our revenue comes from members. But what can you do to support us? One, yes, support us. Two, watch. But three, help us understand.
Right.
I get calls from people all the time. I'm usually at a coffee every morning at 8:00. At one point I got a call from this woman in Ann Arbor. And I said, well, what do you like next Tuesday at 8? She says, you'll come all the way to Ann Arbor? I'm like, it's 32 minutes,
right.
and I'm going to listen to a podcast on my way out there. And so, but yes, we want you to be members, we want you to watch, but also help us understand. And where you love us, advocate for us too,
right.
because the most influential person in around television these days is your neighbor who knows you and says, watch this.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And even this is season 2 of Viva la Visionary. The first season was talking about the role of visionary and different things around it. Season 2, I'm coming a little bit more inward, and I've been outward in a lot of ways. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm here in Detroit, and so why not do in person with local entrepreneurs?
Sure.
So it's it's synchronicity, it's networking for each other. I mean, so any other words of wisdom for me or for us entrepreneurs that we are. I mean, as I elevate and I help you to elevate and you help me to elevate and we help the city, we all win.
Right.
So any other things around that we can do?
There's 5 rules, but the 5th is trouble never gets better on integrity. Never sell your integrity. Have a plan. Always make the call. That's a fun one. But the last piece is, so I teach a college class maybe 3 times a year. And I take them through trouble never goes away on its own. Right. Trouble is the joker. You're in serious trouble. You know it. You realize you're at the University of Michigan School of Music, Theater, and Dance, and you realize you're a really good on-stage performer, and you're in the top 2%, and you're never going to be on stage in Broadway. Right. You realize, you're right, and so when you realize you're a good golfer, you're a good football player, and you realize I'm not going to the NFL. Okay, that's trouble. But it's not going to understand that trouble comes and it stays. Right. Integrity, non-negotiable. I can't say I have perfect integrity, but everybody you work with knows if you're cheating.
Oh, yeah.
And
we hide in plain sight.
Yeah, and then eventually they share that with other people. And then have a plan. Obviously, if you're me, you need a plan, and always make the call. If you read a significant article, call either the writer or the subject. You're the only person who's going to call. Call them on their cell phone. It's fine. Long story. But the last piece is most of the grown-ups you know are really kids. Most of the men we know are 14-year-old chubby boys with acne who can't get a date for the school dance. Right? When you walk in to an interview or to just a little bit, so you went to Michigan State, you're a Spartan, right? To a little bit, talk to them. Don't diminish them. Be careful with that. They're people to expect to be treated with respect. But the point is, almost all the big deal people you know are people before they're big deals. Right. And the idea is that, I said that like our son Nick, he was a little intimidated around grown-ups. And I said, you realize they're as scared of life as you are. They just don't appear to be.
Right.
And so
they're
when
faking it better than
treat people like people. And that means treat big deal people like people and have a little fun, and treat the person at the grocery store like people and respect them. And so in the end, small, medium, large, whatever your career is, whatever you're doing, inside of all of us is somebody who wants to have a friend or wants to be thanked.
Right.
And so I think a lot about that sort of I do know a few grown-ups. You're not a grown-up. You're definitely not a grown-up. We all know like the one or two people that are like, my uncle was a judge and he was a grown-up. But most of the people we know, there's part of them that are still like, you think I'll get picked for the baseball team?
Right.
You know, so that's fun. Have fun with that.
Right. Well, I appreciate you being on the show and leading Detroit how you have, and I'm excited to kind of be back here and to support. So however I can help you and we can help each other, I appreciate it. Any final words for me or for questions for me or for visionaries in general?
Call Coach Bob. Find people in your life. It's amazing. Jeff DeGraff, University of Michigan, said to me once, people will help you and they'll help you for free, but you must be worth their time. Right?
Yep.
And find the Coach Bob in your life and say, help me. No, you got to give it, it's a two-way street. But
For sure.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Rich. I appreciate you.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Thanks.
All the best.
Peace.
Thanks, folks.